Hello everybody, how are you today? I have a model here that I did a peel on a couple of months ago, and if you look back on my either YouTube or Instagram, you'll see my model that was dealing with some acne scarring, and just the coloring of her skin was really flat. So what we wanted to do was we just wanted to pick up the coloring, shrink those pores, help with some of the scarring on her face, and just give it some brightness. It was a little tired looking, a little dull. So she's back here, and that was a couple of months ago we did the peel. Her skin is looking really great. I'm going to do a brightening treatment on her today. So you're going to watch me do a brightening facial. Here we go. My chair. Now I've got a bunch of little towels behind me I'm going to be using as my washcloths for my hands. I have a little bit of eucalyptus on them, which helps to kill off some things there. I love that 100% eucalyptus spray that I use. So we're just going to use this as my towel hand cleaner, so I'm not having to get up all the time while I'm doing this video. So here we go. We're starting with our cleanser. I'm using the Rejuvi K Cleanser. Her skin feels unbelievable. It feels really gorgeous. And you're going to see, if you look back at her previous photos, you can see how different her skin looks now, just how much brighter her skin is. It's no longer dull and tired looking. It's just so pretty. So I'm so happy with the peel that we did. We just did that one peel, and she had been prepping with retinoids. She's been really good about using her alpha hydroxy acids. She's been, using the Rejuvi products for quite some time now. So it's been really nice for her. But look how gorgeous her skin looks. Look at the coloring. Look at the eye area. Look at these cheeks where she had some bigger, deeper spots there before, but just her overall coloring. And I know you can't feel her skin. Obviously, you're just watching me do this. But to feel her skin is just so different than how it used to feel. It feels stronger, it's more dewy, and it's much more hydrated than it was. And once you've got a skin that's hydrated, dewy, and healthy, that means when she gets a pimple, it's going to heal really fast, whereas that was not the case before. Okay, I'm just using some of this disposable cotton as my sponges. Sunblock on there, we're removing. Around that eye area. It's always nice to clean off the eye area with warm water and disposable sponges, or disposable cotton in this case. All right, now the next step, what we're going to be doing is using the exfoliating mask. And I'm just going to work put this amount in. I'm using a little bit of healing gel, and I'm mixing the two together. And remember, today's treatment is a brightening treatment. going to go back with just a little bit more exfoliating mask, and I want to go a little bit stronger around the lower part of the face. So we're going to go back here, and I'm going to put a little bit more on. Constantly using clean Q-tips. I love to be able to use Q-tips because for me they're disposable, and that's great. So here we go. We're just going to go back and do a little bit stronger around these areas where she was sort of breaking out before, where she had some pitting and, or not really pitting, but more scarring, little marks on the face. We'll just go a little bit stronger around here. Don't forget about this area up here underneath the eyebrow. This is an area that gets sun, so sometimes you'll notice that people will have a few freckles, a little bit of sun damage up here. So it's important to make sure when you are exfoliating that you're putting it right underneath this brow bone here and clean well in those eyelashes. A lot of oily people, they get little blackheads, they can get little pimples in there. Remember, hair is a protectant, so you want to always make sure that you're cleaning around the eyebrows and this whole area really well. We're just going to clean off around this eye area here where I put a little bit of the exfoliating mask. Just clean off around the eyes with some cotton. Okay, now I'm going to get some towels out of my hot cubby. And I'm going to cool them off a lot because we don't want to use towels that are too hot. The exfoliating mask does have already, it has in it a little bit of the papaya enzyme, but it also has a little glycolic. And so it is a little bit tingly on the skin. And you don't want to use anything that's hot because that's going to be very uncomfortable and it could burn the skin. So we're cooling off these towels here. They're barely warm, and now we're just going to go back and remove the exfoliating mask. Now very often I leave the towel on the face after I've done my massage and I put it on, but as you can see I'm sort of just not holding this on the face for too long. It's definitely cooler, the washcloths anyway, but we want to make sure that we've just removed this exfoliating mask well and got it off ready for its treatment creams to go on. You want to make sure that your acids and things that you're using, you're not putting anything that's too strong on the skin, making the skin too sensitive. You can see she's got a little bit of color in her skin now just from the exfoliating mask, and that just is a very mild exfoliant. After the exfoliation, I always do healing gel, and the healing gel is mostly aloe vera. So we're just working that into the skin. And that sort of helps soothe and calm if the skin is still a little bit tingly. This is a really nice gel to be putting on after you've done an AHA. Okay, now I'm going to turn on my steam. I like to not touch any of my equipment unless I'm using a tissue. So everything that I touch equipment-wise, there is it's a tissue. I do it with a tissue, and that way it keeps things clean for me. Okay, the next item I'm putting on is going to be my eye product. So I'm going to put on a little bit of gel around the eye here. going to use a little bit of our brightening formula, which is a professional product, and remember this is a brightening facial. I'm putting a squirt of that onto my hand. I'm also adding a little bit of my retinol formula here. So these are both professional products, and I'm using equal amounts of both. And I have them together there. And this is my serum that I'm now going to start working into the skin. Don't forget about the area above the lip. That often can get a little grey there, and because we have fine facial hair, especially in areas like around the lip, you want to make sure you're going backwards and forwards and getting all your treatment serums underneath that hair. So to do that, you do have to go against the hair. And we're just working our treatment serums in. A little bit of the eye gel, working that into the eye area. I'm going to be using a little steam today. Jane does not have any heat in her skin at all. So it's nice, we can use some nice steam. Heat shows inflammation. And her skin is not at all hot, which is wonderful. Not feeling any inflammation, internal inflammation. You can feel it through the skin, and she does not have that going on today, which is great. Okay, so we'll just work that in for a bit. We'll move our steam over, and I'm going to be using again my tissue because we want to not be touching anything here. Keep the steam at a good arm's distance. I'm going to be using it a lot throughout the massage, so we are keeping it at an arm's distance. Now I'm getting out my massage cream, which is my hydrating mask, and that's the cream I use as my massage cream. And that is actually, that's what I'm using here. Warm it up a little bit with the steam. Now when doing treatments, massaging the skin, you want to make sure, if you want to be able to do pressure point work, you want to make sure that number one, your nails are short and that they are nice and not chipped, your polish, because that is not 5-star, right? So you want to always make sure that your nails look clean, and to be able to do pressure point work, you cannot have long nails, you just can't. So that's number one importance. The second thing that I wanted to talk about is not to be wearing jewelry on your hands. You know, if you have jewelry, if you have rings, there's a lot of dirt and grime and bacteria that builds up underneath the ring and between your skin and the metal itself. And it's just not hygienic to be using and wearing jewelry while you're massaging the face, apart from sometimes clients can feel that type of thing. So if you're wearing a watch and it's up high and it doesn't get near to the client, although I don't like to even have my phone in the room when I'm doing my client, even though it could have been turned off, just because, you know, 5G, all these magnets and the electromagnetic, what's going on in the fields around us. it's not great. So it's better if you're not using anything that can be disturbing to your client in any way, especially with forces from phones. And a lot of the Apple Watch phones that people wear, if you're massaging somebody's face, then that's a lot of energy that's right by your client's head. So I don't think that's great. So I do think you need to be very mindful of the jewelry and a Apple Watch if you're using that. Just do be mindful of that. My sister in Australia is very sensitive to any of the Wi-Fi. So everything in her house, the electromagnetic fields, anything in the house is all hardwired. And she had to move to a place where they could not build any towers close by, because it makes her feel really sick in the stomach, and she feels it in her head as well. And there are paints and things that are designed to keep all that electromagnetic fields out. She is so sensitive to anything. Even if I had my phone in my purse, she can feel it. So whenever I enter her house, I have to have my phone on airplane mode and turn my location off, because these things, she can still feel it in her head. So it just shows you that it's very real, and there are more and more people today that are very sensitive to this type of thing. The electromagnetic fields are, there's a lot going on out there, and now that there's 5G in phones, and of course that's only going to be increasing, it's just very, very scary for our future in that respect. So make sure, you're sleeping with your phone on airplane mode. If it's by your bed, just be very mindful of these things. But for us Estes working, doing hands-on work, you also need to be mindful that you don't want to be causing any added stress or to your client. You just want to make things easy, relaxing, free from anything that's could be harmful in any way. Down here in the décolleté a little bit more. I'm going to do some rolling moves coming up this neck. Now sometimes there's certain kinds of melasma that is can be made worse with heat, right? If it's a type of melasma that's inflammation melasma, somebody that hormonally is very affected monthly, they get very grey around this mouth area, which in face mapping is the female sex organs. So once a month, often you'll notice women can get quite dark and grey around this area of the face. So if it's somebody that is, they have inflammation and their melasma is tricky, and it changes a lot throughout the month, then you want to make sure that you're not using steam. This is something that's important to note, because melasma and blotchiness is very tricky. It's very hard to keep at bay, and especially if the melasma itself is no longer virgin melasma, meaning it's been tampered with by either having lasers done or peels, strong peels on the face. A lot of these really strong peels and lasers, they make melasma worse. They're certainly not something that are long-term. Even the Cosmeline peels and things, they always come back. These brown spots come back, melasma. So there are some. The Cosmeline peel, I think, is one of the safer ones that I know for different forms of melasma. But you do have to be very, very tricky. The Pico peel is some of them that are made for different skin tones and colorings that are safer. but it's very hard. You've got to be so careful with melasma. It's very tricky to upset it. And I talk about hydroquinone a lot because it's something that you have to be very careful with. You can't use it ongoingly. You can use it for certain lengths of time, and then which is 6 to 8 weeks, and then you have to stop using it for a month, because our pigment cells have the cycle, the tyrosinase cycle within that cell, and if you go beyond that whole cycle stage, you can upset a pigment cell and make it worse and more blotchy. So when people first start using hydroquinone, they're normally told to use it with a retinol, and it's prescribed that way. It initially looks better, and the blotchiness does look better. It does lighten the blotchiness. But if you don't stop using it for, you know, a month in between, after the 6 to 8 weeks of using it in the beginning, if you don't, then you've got to stop for that month. If you don't stop, you're going to upset that cycle, and it's always going to be a problem. So initially it gets better, but then it gets blotchy again. So the best thing to do is just to be very, very careful, very mindful of these types of things, particularly the prescription ones, because you can only do them for certain lengths of time. Now there's other ingredients like the arbutin, licorice extract, kojic acid, vitamin C, your alpha hydroxy acid, your retinoids, your mulberry extract, arnica, your vitamin K. These are all ingredients that will help lighten the brown blotchy spots on the face. But if you use it constantly, and you're using a fantastic sunscreen of at least an SPF 40 and putting 3 coats of that sunscreen on the melasma, the blotchy areas, then your skin, you can really maintain, you know, and keep it almost, you know, melasma free. But if you're not being consistent with your regimen, using these types of products and ingredients that support to keep the skin tone more even, and if you're not using a sunblock, and I say sunblock because it has to be your physical blocks with your titanium and zinc. You want to have it, the protection on top, as well as it be the UVB, UVA. You want it to protect all. And you have to be putting a good amount on the skin and putting 3 coats on the areas that are blotchy. Now, if you're really good about using your sunblock, winter, summer, day and night basically, because indoors lighting and all of these things can affect it too. So, especially the blue lighting from screens. So now these types of things, if you're really good about it, you can maintain and keep your melasma at bay. But it just takes one time in that sun without your proper sunscreen, and it'll all come back. So you have to be so careful with it. Going on a trip to somewhere like Hawaii or the Bahamas or Cabo, Australia, the sun is so intense over there. And you also have, you don't have the ozone layers, because you don't have as much pollution over there to filter the sun's rays. So it's very important that you understand it's crucial to have your skin, to be wearing a sunblock, to have a skin tone kept even in coloring. And you really have to be so diligent with it. So I just can't stress that enough, because any brightening treatment is going to be a waste of time without a sunblock. So make sure you are unbelievably diligent with your sunblock. It is just absolutely crucial when you're dealing with melasma, or any forms of melasma, pregnancy masks, melasma. These types of melasmas often go 100%, which it did on my own skin, because when I was pregnant I did have blotchiness. But it went away because it was virgin melasma, meaning it wasn't there as a result of sun damage or lasers or peels and strong preparations, which some melasma can be caused from these things. So there are, ways of getting rid of melasma 100%, especially if it's virgin melasma. And if you want to maintain your melasma, if it's not virgin melasma, you can absolutely maintain and keep it very light and under control if you're incredibly diligent. And for me, I have freckles on my skin. I'm very good about my sunscreen. I, having freckles, could have an IPL, a photofacial, which I've never had any lasers done on my skin at all, or any, sort of TCA peels or anything like that. So for me, if I wanted to lighten my freckles, I could go and have an IPL, which is called a photofacial, and it would lighten up my freckles. But IPL does not work on different forms of melasma. It's melasma's tricky, and it's one of the hardest things that I deal with in my practice. So it's very, very important that you understand. You have to be really good about the sun. And I've said it a lot in this video, and I'm going to continue saying it, because not only does sun exposure give you brown spots, sun damage, it also, that UVA, the rays that we can't see, that doesn't burn the skin, goes very deep into those dermal layers, and it loosens the skin. It destroys collagen and elastin fibers, and then your skin gets loose. So that's why sometimes, even when you see a very fit person who goes to the gym all the time, is very fit, they can have a lot of muscle, but if they've been exposed to the sun and not using sunscreen and protecting their skin, they will have loose skin as they get older over top of that muscle. So it's very important to be mindful. Sun does not just give you brown spots and melasma, it weakens the skin and makes the skin very, very loose on your arms, on your legs, and on your face and your décolleté, everywhere. So it's just not great for wrinkles. It's not great for having keeping your skin tight, too much sun. So you got to be very careful of your outdoor activities. Now, especially around the eye area, you can't do work around the eye area and be really effective on the pressure points around the eye, this orbital area, if you have long nails. It just doesn't work. And I see a lot of esties having really long nails, and you learn to work with long nails. I've had them at one point in my life 40 years ago. 45 years ago when I first started beauty school, but my instructor said if I feel them once, those nails are coming down. So I actually did very well, but I wasn't able to do pressure point work. So you've got to really decide about how you're going to be doing your treatments when you have really long nails, because it's also something that isn't necessarily hygienic. You've got to be very, very careful. Wash your hands a lot. If you're using gloves, and make sure you're taking off those gloves and not using them the whole facial. You've got to be changing them up a lot, because gloves does not mean that you're a hygienic person. Let me tell you, it's washing your hands many times throughout your facial is a a much better source is what I believe. So I think gloves are great and necessary, and especially, you know, if you're doing extractions and there's a little blood, and of course we know this is important, but when it comes to washing hands, there's nothing better than warm water and soap for washing your hands. Or hot water and soap. I like really hot water myself. Sculpting massage here for a moment. As you can see, I've used the steam the whole way through here. I've got it at a good arm's distance. You don't want to have steam too close. And you don't want the skin to really be sweating a lot here. Because once the skin starts to sweat, we're getting a little sweating down here on the décolleté, the skin can start to dehydrate. So you want to be really mindful of that too. Whenever you're doing massage, you want to always make sure you finish your points. You're not just scooting all over the face, because your client feels everything. So all your pressure points, you want to make sure that you're covering them, you're not just missing anything, because your client can feel everything, and it doesn't feel nice if you're just running across the face quickly with your hands and you're not finishing your moves correctly. Very important. Finish your moves correctly. Your massage moves. Warm towels. pressing down too tight here at the moment. They're a little warm. Turning off my steamer. I'm taking this out here. I'm just going to cover this up here so her neck and décolleté don't get a little cold. Pulling up the pillow here so that I can put this dry towel, because sometimes this towel that her head is lying on gets a little wet, especially from the warm towels that I take out, so I don't want that wetness touching her shoulders. So that's good to be mindful. Now we've done our massage. What I'm going to do now, again, we're doing our brightening treatment. I'm going to be spraying a little bit of the brightening toner on my hand, and then I'm going to be, actually this one here, I'll actually pour this on. I remember to change out my pump. Okay, here we go. So we've got some of the brightening toner, and I'm just going to pat this into the skin before we put on the mask. So that's a brightening toner which contains a lot of vitamin C. The other thing I'm going to put on is a little bit more of the retinol. This one's the retinoid formula. I used it earlier on the face to massage in with the brightening formula. And we're just putting a little bit more retinoid on before I put on the mask. I'm just going to readjust the headband here. Make sure that the wetness from before, again, is turned out, so we're not putting that close to the head here. Keep it dry. It's more comfortable for your client. So I've put her hair in so we get less mask onto the hair, but also you can see I've turned the towel out so that this wetness here is not touching her face. These are all things that I consider to be 5-star. You want to be a 5-star esthetician, you have to be very mindful of all the details, the fine details. Now the next product that we're putting on is the firming mask. And the firming mask is a mask that is, here we are, the firming. The firming mask is a mask, I'm down the bottom of my mask here, that also has a little retinol in it, but it is a brightener. And so we're doing that brightening treatment today. It does not set super tight like a couple of our other clay masks. This one's a really nice mask, but it is a brightening mask. And also having a little retinol in it, it's wonderful because any of your actives, your retinols or your AHAs, they help keep pore sizes small, they help lessen the depth of a wrinkle, and also lightening brown spots. I use my hands for everything. I don't have time to be using brushes, mask brushes, and cleaning them off properly, and so I like to have my hands on my client as much as I can. I'm massaging everything. The skin can always do with great massage. Movement is medicine. We want to constantly be keeping that lymphatic system moving, massaging muscles. That helps bring oxygen to the blood. It helps stimulate muscle tone. sure you do that lip area well. All right, so now we have our mask on. I'm going to leave this on my model and put a couple of little eye pads over top of her eyes. And put a little bit of healing gel on the eyes, just a tiny little bit. Rub them together like this. Stretch the pad out a tab. Put it over top of the eye here. And that's it. That's all for today. I hope you enjoyed watching our brightening treatment facial. When I go to take the mask off, I'm going to be using the brightening toner again. I'm going to put a little bit of the Q flavonoid on, and I'm going to be putting on a little bit of the super soothing lotion and a really great sunblock, a physical sunblock. So I hope you enjoyed today's facial, and thank you for being here. I'll be back to see you all again really soon.